everyone, this is the great Lord and Master, Osiron, the Eternal, or the artist formerly known as the Great Roberto. Now this should be a very short, it's only going to be an intro to the Tarot Cube, because there's a couple of key things I didn't illustrate yesterday that are very important, and it is this. You see the Tarot Cube polarity oscillation? You see, the way I had it drawn up on yesterday's video, there's just so much numbers there, it probably didn't convey, and I didn't highlight it, but what's really going on with the tarot in the cube is a beautiful oscillation of 3 and 6. What you have is 0 for the Fool, and then you have 3 cards, the Axis cards, and their values equal 6, total is 6. Then the next row is 6 cards, and their values reduced to 3. And then the next 2 rows, and here's where it really may have been painted a different picture that I didn't mean to convey. But then the next section, the entirety of it is 12 cards, which reduce to 3. And that equals 6. So we're seeing 3, 6, 6, 3, and then 3, 6 again in this Tarot Cube geometry. Amazing. And then, as I was pondering this, something else came out to me on the outer cube dynamics. All the tarot cards on the outer cube, as I say, equal 666, but there's another aspect to it that sort of validates the whole cube aspect of the numbers. And that is the top cards become 46, 10, then 1. The sides are 62, then reduced to 8. And then the bottom is 78, reduced to 15, then 6. Now if you add up all of these numbers, it becomes 186, which reduces to 15, then 6. But now if you look, each of these separate ones, top, sides, and bottom, also are a 1, 8, and a 6. And that, of course, reduces to 15, then 6 again. And then in the middle, balancing it out, is the 33. And we all know 33 is powerful. But what is 33? Just 2 3s, and that becomes 6. So these points I wanted to highlight because they're so important. And also, one number that just jumped out as well is 78. The tarot deck has 78 cards, and you see that here. That might just be whatever, but that's amazing. This is really amazing. But with all the jumble of numbers I had going on yesterday, this probably didn't make itself clear, and I didn't highlight it. So that's why I want this to be a very short intro video. And then what I'm going to do is have a link below, like a card, and you can click on that to get to the sort of official video of the Tarot Cube, because the Tarot Cube really is amazing. It changes the tarot, it makes the tarot trumps, it turns the tarot trumps into something much more meaningful than they would otherwise be. And the Tree of Life too, there was one aspect to the Tree of Life I wanted to mention in this video too that's very important, but it is slipping my mind. Oh yeah, see, this cube is showing feminine and masculine characteristics. And on the true Tree of Life, I never really highlighted this, but the true Tree of Life is doing the same thing. The circle Sephiroth emanation is feminine, but the actions of the true Tree of Life are shown through the pathways. I mean, the Kabbalists, they'll give you a song and dance that it's some abstract concept of a soul journey. But, the Kabbalists, there's a lot of, deception in the Kabbalistic presentation, as I've shown. But the masculine aspect of the true Tree of Life is the pathways. And we see that in nature, too. Even the Flower of Life. It was, the circle is feminine and the straight lines are masculine. We see that in nature. Circle is feminine, straight lines are masculine. Same thing with the Tree of Life, same thing with the cube. So this is the intro. Now click on the other link to get the full story of the Tarot Cube in a more drawn out way, because all the numbers that I had on that graph just may have drowned out a lot of stuff. And also, one last quick thing. On the main presentation, the numbers right around here say 666. Well, that is right. But if you add up the numbers right above it, it's going to say 999. What I didn't do and should have done was add the 6 of these 3 cards into that equation, but I didn't do that. But that's okay, because it shows that outside of the axis, the cube itself, everything reduces to 9. It's the action of the axis, the axes allow for the movement of the cube, and that's represented by a 6 and a 3, which is beautiful, but 3 then 6. So it's showing that beautiful 3-6-9 dynamic that we all know and love now. Namaste. Thank you. Hello everyone. This is the great Lord and Master Osiron, the Eternal, or the artist formerly known as the Great Roberto. Got my wild hair, just barely in check today. Okay, this is going to be a really, really powerful video, I hope, because the subject is very powerful. This really opens up the tarot in a whole new way. This is amazing. What it's going to be called, what this is the tarot in relationship to the cube. So the tarot cube geometry. If you see over here, the structure is a cube, and I know it's going to be nearly impossible to see the minute details of the numbers, but I'll this may actually, there's so much going on with this. This is probably something you're going to have to, if you're interested, draw out yourself and look at it, because there's just so much going on with the numbers. But I'm going to try to give a decent presentation anyway. Alright, what you see here is a cube, and how this cube is constructed is it has a center point. You see with these axes, green axes, and then in the center point is a center point, and then it has 3 axes, the X, Y, and Z axes. And then in this particular structure it has 6 faces represented by the red smaller squares here. Those are the faces of the cube. And then it has the outer cube, which is drawn in blue. Now, how I came onto this, I was scrolling on Facebook and someone had posted a picture of the cube in the tarot, and I've actually seen this before too in one of my Kabbalistic tarot books. But they posted this, and I started looking at it, and I was like, wait a minute, there's something really, really wrong with this. Because what this cube comes from, it comes from the Jewish Kabbalistic book, the Sefer Yetzirah, and again, my advice to anybody who wants to follow Jewish mysticism, don't. Only do it to figure out how they're cheating you, how they're lying to you, and how they're deceiving you, because you can bet they are. As I'll show with this. But how they had it on the post is they had it corresponding to the tarot trumps, and how the tarot trumps interact with this cube. But because you got to understand something, again, the Jews don't acknowledge the tarot, and the number system, because of that, would be different because of their structure. But there's a lot to get into here. But once you do this, once you lay this out, once you lay the tarot trumps out according to this cube, it forms what we have over here with these numbers, an entirely new tarot trump layout. What it does is puts the Fool on top with 0, and then below that is the High Priestess, the Magician, and then the Empress. And this represents the center point of the axis. This represents the three cards of the axis, and these 6 cards below that represent the faces of the cube, and then these 12 cards below that represent the outer cube. So this tarot layout here is entirely derived from this cube geometry. Okay? Now, the way they had it the way they had it in the post was they had the world, and this is the way the Jews have it too, but they had the world, which is card 21, in the dead center of the cube. And then they had the Fool on this axis here, this north-south axis. That's where they had the Fool. The Fool in the tarot is 0. So that's, that just does not make sense at all. And then they had the cards after that in a jumbled order that really doesn't really make much sense. So, I mean, the first thing I had to fix was the dead center. I mean, that's the perfect position for the Fool, because that shows you how 0 applies to a system, because that center axis point really doesn't exist. It's 0, but it does exist. So that shows you the relationship of 0 and 9. Is how something can exist but not exist. And the center point of the cube is a perfect example of that. So that's why the true center of the cube is for 0, not the world. And then what happens after that, again, as I showed with this, then the axis cards shown in green here, shown in blue over here, is the High Priestess, again, which is rightfully 1, the Magician, which is 2, and then the Empress, which is 3, and that's shown by these axis cards, which is 3 cards. And then, as I stated, the faces are 6, so we're already seeing a 3-6-9 configuration develop with this. We got 3 axes, 6 faces, and then 12 outer cards. But as you can see, with this layout, the 12 outer cards are broken into 2 groups of 6. One of the main reasons I did that was just so I could fit it in a picture and take a picture of it on my Facebook. I'll show that too. But then once I started playing with the numbers of that, it really started to reveal some powerful things. So with these lower cards, these 3 rows of 6, as you can see clearly, that shows that becomes 18 cards, which reduced to 9, okay, with the 3 rows. But now, with these rows, each individual row going from top to bottom using the tarot trump numbers, every row reduces to 369 and then 369. Isn't that wild? So the tarot trumps again are saying this, and it's also showing how the 369 grid apply. Once you dial something in and hit it right, the 369 grid just comes alive by itself. And it does that by way of, it becomes 30, which becomes 3, 33, another powerful number, which becomes 6, 36, another powerful number, which becomes 9, 39, reduces to 12, then 3, 42 is 6, and then 45 is 9, and that gets 369, 369, and that's from the tarot trumps. But what happens when you add the rows going horizontally, like 4 through 9, you get 39, which reduces to 12, which becomes 3. And then this next row here is 75, which reduces to 12 to become 3. And this bottom row here becomes 111, which reduces to 3 directly, and then stays 3 directly. And then when you add these rows up, it becomes 666. And we know the cube is one of the ways to represent the cube is 666. And one of the reasons they say that, because I guess the carbon atom or molecule or whatever the proper word for that is represented by 6 protons, 6 neutrons, and 6 electrons to get 666. That's how they come to justify the cube as being 666. But we're seeing this with the tarot trumps revealing this number. Okay. And again, 666. If you add that, it becomes 9. The root of that becomes 9 as well. Now, all the tarot trumps, if you add all the tarot trumps going through 0 through 21, to get 22, that does reduce to 6 too. So there's a lot of 6 action going on with this. But again, it's the cube. It's the material world, so you are going to see that. That's why we see 666 here. Now, up here I got these numbers. I got what I call the true tarot cube, and then I got the numbers of the false cube. Now in the tarot cube, it's really the same thing as the tarot layout, because that's where the tarot layout comes, is from the cube, but I got it broken down into some different numbers. You got dead center, which is 0, but it shows you how 0 becomes a 1, because that is how 0 becomes a 1. 0 is really 0, and there's no way to know what 0 is unless you become 1 to acknowledge it. You know, it's one of those things. So 0 becomes a 1 by being acknowledged as a state, and that's what we see over here. You know, dead center is 1 condition, 1 state, and that happens to be 0. And then we've got 3 axes, 6 faces, and then the outer broken up into 2 groups of 6 and 6. Now if you add all those numbers up, you see 22 again. And if we recall, on the true tree of life, when you add up the Sephiroth in the middle pillar, it becomes the 22. Now a false cube, we're going to see something with a false cube. Because the false cube, remember the Jews don't acknowledge 0, so the middle center point here, which is rightfully 0, would be a 1 in their system. And then because of that, it throws every other number off. So now what you get is dead center is 1, then the 3 axes become 9, the 6 faces become 45, and then the whole outer cube becomes 198. And then that reduces to 19918, and then finally 1999. But all of those numbers reduce to 10. So we see 10, 10, and 10. This goes back to how 10 is, 10 but isn't really a bad number, but 10, remember, 10 doesn't exist in the single digit code. There is no such thing as a 10. 10 just becomes 1. These numbers, 10 is just a masculine expression of 1, as I've stated in the True Tarot, the True Tree of Life, and the Proof of God, and all these videos that I've made. But in that, and then the numbers as they go out, as they fractalize out, oscillate back and forth. So each group is going to change. It is going to be masculine dominant or feminine dominant, and that's what you see. That's how the 1 of 10 becomes a masculine expression, because it's really 1. 10 is only 1. But in that particular aspect, in the phase of where it is, it's a masculine aspect of the feminine principle. That gets a little wild, of course. So this is what we're seeing. Now, the cube, going back to the true cube, the inner geometry, and there's one thing I want to show. All of these inner faces, the 0 point, the axes, and then the 6 faces, become 9. That reduces to 9. And then what in the Hermit is the 9 card. And then when you break into this secondary system here of the 12 outer cube cards, that begins with 10. So the Wheel of Fortune is a new beginning, literally. So you got the Fool here, you got these primal cards, the 1, 2, 3, and then you got the secondary cards here of 4 through 9, which again, if you watch my Zodiac video, the cards 4 through 9 represent the 6 months when the sun is above the abyss. So we got April, May, June, July, August, September with the 4 through 9. So now we're seeing a correlation to the zodiac again with this tarot layout. And these 3 cards, 1, 2, 3 in the blue, these could also represent the winter period of the zodiac. Because if you remember, 10 reduces to 1. Of course, 2 of February reduces to 2, and the 12 of Pisces reduces to 3. So these 3 cards could be the winter cards too, or the womb cards of the zodiac layout. There's so much going on here. If you really want to capture it, you're going to have to probably draw it yourself and look at it, because there's just so much going on. And then, I know I'm kind of rambling a little here, but these numbers that you probably can't see on the cube, these numbers are what those numbers numbers are on the cube. I just want to make another note on the cube. I tried to be congruent in the construction of it. So I used a top to bottom formula, and then I kept every card position as it manifested. I kept the same sequence every time. So what I did was, as you see a 0 point in the center, then once you get the 1, the 2, and the 3, once you break out of those, then with the 4, when I went from 4 on, I started at the top, 4, and then 5 is the far one, 6 would be left, 7 would be right, and then the bottom, then the front face would be 8, and then the bottom would be 9. I tried to follow that formula for every layout. And the numbers actually do produce interesting correlations when you do that. You know, the outer cube dynamics, the whole outer cube reduces to 6662, but it does so, the top numbers, all the top numbers add to 46, the side ones become 62, and the bottom add to 78, and that reduces to 10 for the top, 8 for the sides, and then 15 for the bottom, which reduces to 1 at 8, and then a 6. Okay, and then all that reduces to 666. Again, the cube and 666. The false cube does show 666 when you use their layout, because with the false cube, these numbers up here come from, I copied the same exact formula as the true cube tarot cards to get these numbers. But I also did it using their tarot card layout, and it basically comes to the same thing, the same numbers. So if you use the math of the false cube using their numbers, it still reduces to 10, 10, 10. Everything reduces to 10, 10, 10 still. It just, the numbers look a little different up top, but it really doesn't matter in the end because it does the same thing. As a matter of fact, the secondary numbers are the same too with the false cube. You know, they all become the same thing, so it's, you know, I mean, the only one that's different is the end, and that's off by 10, but again, it doesn't matter because it still reduces to 10 anyway, so the false cube is rooted in 10 more than 666. But with the false cube, all the inner ones, like the nine spaces, the axes and the faces, do form 666 when you reduce that, but the outer cube doesn't. The outer cube becomes 10, 10, 10 as well. There's a lot going on with this. I mean, if you're lost, I don't blame you, because I'm lost talking about it. But it is congruent. That's the important thing. It is congruent. It does show the relationship to 369. It shows that the single-digit code of 0 through 9 again, once again, destroys Jewish math, Greek math. You know, and actually, while doing this yesterday, I actually destroyed another of the famous so-called, you know, Pythagorean things. I'm going to probably make that video right after this. It's the true Tetractys. You know, the Tetractys. You know, I discovered the true Tetractys, and I'm going to get into that in that video because it's important to make. So I'm probably going to make that right after this. But this is the tarot cube geometry, and all these numbers, if you can even see them well enough, show how the cube interrelates. And let me show you a picture, if you can see it, of the tarot trumps. You can see it on my Facebook too. If you're a friend of mine on Facebook, I post a lot of shit there. Here's the layout for the tarot trumps using the weight deck and the proper configuration of cube geometry. See that? That's how that goes. So hopefully this video isn't too insane, isn't too rambling. Hopefully I convey the message properly, because this is powerful. This is another aspect of geometry that once again supports the single digit code. The single digit code of 0 through 9 is the code of this matrix. I say it over and over again because it's true. The false, and it also shows how using the false math of the Jews and even the Greeks, will poison the matrix. Now, when it comes to the Greeks, we got to explore exactly what happened to that. How they ended up being so wrong. Because obviously, Pythagorean math and geometry and the Platonic solids are all powerful, powerful mathematical constructs that are valid. I mean, all the Platonic solids reduced to 9 in several ways, with the faces, except for one, the tetrahedron that is fire reduces to 6. But again, that's a masculine exertion of Kundalini. In fire, what is fire but masculine? But that's interesting. That's the only one that reduces to 6. The rest of them all reduced to 9. In the faces, corners, and lines, intersecting lines, but also in the the angular degrees, they do it too, which is amazing. So this is it for this. I hope it was, again, I want to watch this before I publish it, but namaste.